Hi and welcome to The Print. My name is Karanjeet Kaur. I'm a writer and an editor. Let's talk today about innovation in Indian startups. Now, I'm not entirely sure how we got to this point, but in the span of a week, we've discovered that vegan ice cream and gluten-free cookies are the only roadblocks preventing India from being a leader in the deep tech startup space. Piyush Goyal, who is India's Minister of Commerce and Industry, recently admonished a hall full of startup founders at Startup Mahakumbh 2025. He was wearing a full face of disappointment. Goyal posed a rhetorical question that has since sent LinkedIn and Reddit abuzz. So what does India want to make? Ice cream or semiconductor chips? During his presentation, Goyal also showed a slide comparing startups in India and China. He claimed that Indian startups were preoccupied with food delivery apps, fancy ice cream and cookies, instant grocery delivery, betting and fantasy sport apps, and reels and influencer economy. Their Chinese counterparts, on the other hand, were focused on electric vehicles, semiconductors, AI, and robotics. Now, there's something hilarious about a minister standing before India's most successful non-conformists, only to scold them for conforming a little too successfully. The minister's admonishment triggered a cacophony of reactions and counter-reactions. Bhavish Agarwal of Ola and Aman Gupta of Boat dutifully applauded Goyal, happy to align themselves with the official narrative of aiming higher. However, not everyone was eager to swallow. Adit Palicha, the CEO of Zepto, wrote on X that his company had created over 1.5 lakh jobs and contributed over 1,000 crore in taxes each year. He labelled it a miracle in Indian innovation. For his troubles, Palicha received a lecture all his own from BJP leader Praveen Khandelwal, who told him, claiming to create jobs and pay taxes while burning foreign capital to dismantle India's small neighbourhood kirana stores is not innovation. Ashneer Grover, former Bharat Pay managing director, went a step further to take a swipe at the government. He said, "It's great to aspire for what they, meaning China, have done. Maybe time for politicians to aspire for 10% plus economic growth rate for 20 years flat before chiding today's job creators." These exchanges, flying thick and fast, perfectly mirrored our national inability to have an honest conversation. Meanwhile, the minister's unkind remarks opened the floodgates for several founders to unveil the reality of ease of doing business in India. Take Murtaza Amin, who runs an IT services company called Biz Prospects in Burhanpur, Madhya Pradesh. He wrote about relentless bureaucratic harassment in a widely read X thread. Amin stated that he and his co-workers were treated like third-grade citizens by babus, who demanded bribes for everything. He asked, "Aren't we building digital India? Or is that a jumla for commoners like us?" Another founder in a semiconductor startup directly addressed Goyal in an open letter on Reddit. He wrote, "Your department sat on my application for over 2 years and returned it, asking for additional documents, with a note that after submitting the documents, my application will again go to the back of the queue. That is another 2 years. Within a few hours of your rejection, I got a call from a facilitator who promised me quick and guaranteed results if I use their service for preparing my documents." The most frustrating aspect of this debate, though, is that Goyal, despite his withering tone, is absolutely right. Yes, India's deep tech landscape is very sparse compared to China's robust ecosystem of over 6,000 companies that have collectively raised nearly 100 billion. Yes, we have disproportionately focused on consumer-facing apps that serve the rich thanks to a vast pool of exploitable labor with no viable choices. The data bears this out unambiguously. Only about 5% of total funding in our startup ecosystem goes to deep tech, compared to 35% in China. And yes, according to research papers, 77% of venture capitalists report that many Indian startups lack pioneering innovation based on new technologies or unique business models. But wagging fingers at startup founders fails to acknowledge the complex web of structural barriers that systematically choke innovation in infancy. Goyal's comparison with China conveniently omits that the Chinese government invested in a 20-year vision to develop an ecosystem where deep tech could flourish. India's research and development expenditure, meanwhile, hovers at a paltry 0.6 to 0.7% of GDP. Systematic innovation doesn't emerge overnight from ministerial directives. It grows through years of intentional cultivation. And India's social and cultural landscape is fundamentally antithetical to the idea of innovation. The first frontier is the family, which discourages any risk-taking, followed closely by India's education system, which is designed to suffocate any creative impulse. From the earliest years, schools reward memorization over meaning. In these cognitive prisons, divergent thinking is actively punished. Students learn very quickly that questioning the teacher or exploring tangential ideas leads to lower marks. All this while, the muscle of creative thinking atrophies. Here's an example of what happens in Indian schools. I watched a video featuring Vidhi Jain, who is the co-founder of Shikshantar, a center aimed at unschooling. She recalls an art workshop with young children. Many school-going kids reproduce the same mountain, sun, river picture that you'll find plastered across the walls of every Indian institution. When children are taught that their worth is measured by their ability to reproduce textbook knowledge, and even fun is standardized, why are we surprised when they grow into adults who struggle to color outside the lines? By the time these students reach adulthood, they've internalized a profound risk aversion. We have engineering graduates with no sense of history and business students who can only parrot case studies. These are not failures of individual imagination, but predictable outcomes of our educational methodology. This is how we end up with a demographic dividend that is hardly employable and a global innovation index rank of 39. The very skills that are essential to deep tech innovation, which is a certain comfort with uncertainty, multidisciplinary thinking, and a massive tolerance for failure, are routinely extinguished. Ironically, India's enormous engineering talent has been poised to take on the challenges posed by what experts have labeled the coming wave. After all, our brilliant minds power innovation in other countries that makes its way back here, while the rest of us are trained to execute rather than envision. Nothing illustrates this theatre of innovation than the recent controversy surrounding Ping browser, which won a 75 lakh rupee prize at the Indian Web Browser Development Challenge. Now, this government-backed initiative was meant to foster India's technological creativity. Instead, it rewarded what was essentially a rebranded version of the open-source Brave browser, with only cosmetic alterations. The most Atmanirbhar thing about this Made in India browser was apparently the audacity to claim it as original work. We cannot have an anti-innovation ecosystem and also demand the fruits of innovation. We cannot punish creativity, initiative, and risk-taking and then throw up our hands when the next semiconductor revolution doesn't emerge from within our borders. Do bureaucrats dream of electric startups? Maybe, but only if those startups conform to a slow-moving ecosystem, sign the correct forms in triplicate, and never ever question. In a country where even the PM cannot go off script, we'll have to be content with rebranded browsers. And maybe vegan ice cream isn't so bad. At least it's honest about what it is.